All right, class. Welcome back to English 1301. Let's get off a video today or a lecture that talks about where we are and what's happening and what's going on. Now, one of the things is that I want to talk. What's going on?
I'm going to come in at 25 minutes and start making a bunch of
All right. One of the things, class, I'm sorry about that. That was my wife trying to have a little fun with me, I guess. Friday, we had a great question and answer session. We'll have another one of those again, I think on Friday at the same time. Remember, class, that you don't have to come to those. It's not mandatory at all. It's like an office hours or office hour, and it was great Friday. A lot of students showed up. Students had questions. So, and I answered them, and we had a good time, all right? So, next week, too, we'll do that again, this upcoming week. Any questions you have? I took care of a lot of things. There were a lot of good questions from students, and I helped out. So, that's what I'm here to do. Now, also, class, as mentioned before, I'm in the middle of grading your portfolios. I grade 7 days a week. Class, I've read some good portfolios, and a mix of grades. Once again, so far, A minus to F portfolios, a lot in between. Some portfolios couldn't be graded yet for various reasons, but I'll help you with that. Say, for example, that your formatting was all messed up, or you had problems with spacing. I'm here to help, so I will talk to you about those. I'll put those in the comments section, but a lot are graded too, and I've read really some really good essays, and I'm impressed. Some good, some not so good, but it's all right. You got to get those back, and I'll help you with those, and we'll talk about those when those come back. But that's still quite a bit in the future, because remember, class, I take 2 weeks to grade a complete set of portfolio from the day that they were turned in, and you will hear from me exactly on that date 2 weeks later. So that's coming up this Friday for some classes, and then the Tuesday after for a couple of other classes. Now, so class, we're going to look to the syllabus today, and as we move into the profile that you've been reading about, and we'll see once again what they need to do, what you need to do. So Tuesday is going to be this upcoming Tuesday is going to be the 29th. Monday is going to be the 28th for the classes. So we have some handouts that gave you. It said read 220 to 228, and to also pass out the handout on the profiles. So we have those, class. We're going to be talking certainly about those today, and I have them here. Once again, this first major handout, which has the great essay in it, A Surgeon's War on Breast Cancer by Molly O'Neill, written and published for the New York Times. So we'll put that aside, class, because we're going to be working with that and talk about that. And then, class, also what you had, excuse me, for this introductory lecture is this student essay. This student did what you're going to do for me. We're not there yet. But once again, Betsy Buffo's interview with an artist, where she was an English 1301 student. We'll talk about that in a minute. She sat down with this young artist. She interviewed him, and she wrote a profile. So class, what are we doing here today? Class, one of the things that's going on is in this new assignment, you're going to be working as if you were, once again, a journalist or an investigative reporter. Journalists are investigative reporters, or can be. Or aspects of being a scientist or a detective. Skills that you can use your entire life. And where do we see profiles? Where do we see profiles? One of the things we're going to talk about, class, is we see them everywhere. And by everywhere, I mean a profile is a particular type of writing that you will see in newspapers, online and offline, magazines, online and offline. Once again, on TV, we'll talk about that in a minute, and on radio, class, and on the internet. But it's a particular type of writing. So, profiles, say in newspapers, say we're in El Paso and we're dealing with the El Paso Times. A journalist could sit down with a figure and interview them for half an hour, which you're going to do for me. You may do it through FaceTime. You may do it through Zoom. You may do it in person with someone. Have a mask on. Make sure you're social distance. And interview them. So in the El Paso Times, it could be someone like, you'd read a profile of maybe one of the new mayoral candidates. We have a election coming up. So maybe Carlos Galinar, who's running for mayor, or Dee Margo, or Oscar Leeser, who's running again. And we could read a profile of them. Also, who else could be profiled? Maybe the sheriff. Anyone prominent within, once again, the El Paso community, in the El Paso Times, online or offline. Maybe a teacher. Maybe, once again, someone who's recovered from the coronavirus. Anybody that, once again, has something newsworthy. Maybe, once again, a player in the El Paso Times in the sports section that had a good football game, high school or college, class. UTEP's kind of unbelievable. They're, what the heck are they? 2-1, 3-1 right now. They've won some games, first time in 12 years, you know. We watched them the other day, UTEP doing it, class. Or maybe a big, when the football season starts. So all these people, or maybe a young woman who has grew up in El Paso and is now in Hollywood, which sometimes happens, or as a news anchor, you know, someone that carries a message of hope for this community. There's a lot of hope here, class. Maybe you could profile, class, a criminal. Maybe someone who's done their time and gotten out of jail. It goes on and on. So these are all possible subjects for a profile. And we see them in newspapers. Like the profile today of Molly O'Neill, which was published in the New York Times. Beautiful piece of writing. When you read that, study it. And when you're reading that and you're reading Betsy Buffo's interview with an artist, you read to read it and get it, but also be thinking about, I'm going to have to do this, all right? I'm going to have to do this. So what can I learn from this? What can I learn from these readings that Mr. Welsh has given us? Because I'm going to have to do it. You're going to have to do it. What's going on here with this type of writing? I'm here to help you because I'm the professor, class. I used to make a living a long time ago doing this, writing profiles for a newspaper in Los Angeles. Then I had some other jobs where I was an editor and a writer. And you can make money doing it. Profile writing, class. So I'm going to help you with that. And they're fun, but they're challenging. It'll have some of the aspects of the memoir in regards to writing, but it's also a different type of writing because, class, what you're doing is the memoir, which I'm reading right now for you, your memoirs, and grading those. I've read some good ones, class. I've read some good memoirs. One of the things I like about reading my students' memoirs is it reminds me sometimes what it was like to be young. You know, what it's like to be young, to be back in high school, or be in middle school, or be bullied, or have to fight. I just read an essay from a young woman, which is pretty good. Had a couple of issues, but it's pretty good and is actually very good. And she started doing dope in high school. I don't recommend that, but I think it was ecstasy. And one of the problems I had with the essay is, she kept popping pills and tripping. And I kept thinking to myself, wow, is this LSD she's doing? Is this mushrooms she's doing? What the hell is she doing? And then I think what I figured out was it was ecstasy. I guess, MDMA. It's a good essay, powerful. I'd like to have a few more details. I'd like to know a little more about placing the essay, a little more about El Paso. If it was El Paso, those details. It was a good essay, though, all right? In the end, she realized that, she wanted to not go down that road where some of her friends have gotten stuck in, the road of drug addiction, that road of alcoholism, and she wanted to do something else in life. She didn't want to get stuck in taking ecstasy all the time, or smoking marijuana all the time, or being drunk all the time. She had friends that like that, and some people never come out of that class. Next thing you know, you're my age, and you're like, what happened? If you make it at my age, why was I so wasted my whole life? I'm not judging it. The question is, she came out of it. Now she's kicking ass in college. Good for her. Good for her, class. But I'm not judging. I have friends back in LA that are never able to get out of that life that I grew up with back in the day, in high school. People I knew started smoking weed 5-6 times a day. And I'm like, wow, man, that's cool, I guess, but giving your whole life to marijuana and unfulfilled potential, I don't think so. Some people can do it and hit it and be all right. Do it on occasion. Some people, it takes their whole lives. Class, the profile. So she wrote her memoir about that, a different type of writing. Well, now that young woman or that young man, whoever you are, you're going to go interview someone for an hour. Take notes, take notes, take notes. We're not there yet, but when you do it, you're going to sit down with someone. You have pen and paper. You're going to ask them questions. We're not there yet. You're going to take notes, 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 notes. When they're doing their answers. So you can capture the essence of what they're saying in the details, class. So once again, you can write one of these profiles. Now, so you're going to be like a detective, a scientist. These are skills you can use your whole life. Not just for English, but life. How do we talk to people? How do we get people to respond? How do we ask people meaningful questions? How do we pay attention to other people, all right? And let them know that their lives are fascinating. You get good at this class, the world can open up for you, okay? By good, I mean asking meaningful questions to get people to talk. I've had people when I was a young man, class, and I was doing this because I had gotten a degree in journalism, and I was working as a journalist, and I was working as a newspaper reporter. And then occasionally I'd end up at house parties, and I was still single in my 20s, sometimes in my 30s, and meet people at a party and pay attention. Wow, that's a nice looking dress you have on. Or could you tell me where you got it from? Or wow, I just want to let you know that that's an amazing leather jacket. Could you tell me where you got that jacket from? And people talk, right? Or, you know what, that song you just played on the guitar is phenomenal. Did you write it? Or, you sure do have an aptitude for playing the harmonica. Or, that is a serious rap you just laid on me. Can you tell me where you learned to rap? Or, and then people talk, all right? Because people's lives are fascinating. I've had people tell me before Mr. Welsh, no one's ever been interested in my life, and you seem interested in my life. And no one's ever asked me questions like you have, you know? I'm going to answer them. Or sometimes we don't know. Maybe some people don't like to ask questions. I'll never forget when I first traveled to Texas when I was 30 years old, and I was traveling across the country by myself. And I ended up in Houston. And I became a waiter at a Tex-Mex restaurant in Houston, Texas, called On the Border Cafe. And a bartender asked me, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Los Angeles. He said, you know what, dude, you ask a lot of questions. I said, yeah, but you can ask me questions too, and I'll tell you anything. And he told me, we're in Texas. People don't ask a lot of questions in Texas. I remember that. I tripped. I kind of laughed, class, because I'm going to ask questions. Even in Houston, I did. That's a long time ago, class. It's a young man, kind of young, 30, hanging out in Houston, Texas, working as a waiter. Good city. A lot of people hate it. Not me. Class, Houston is the big city in the big state. Houston is the big city in the big state. Let's go on. So, what are you going to be doing here, class, as part of this assignment for me? You're going to be, note this, observing. So, as we just talked about, how do you observe things? How do you pay attention so you can write about it? How do you, class, observe things when you're interviewing someone? How do you observe life so you can write about it or make life more interesting? Class, there may be in a time of life where you don't want to observe anything. There was a time in my life where somebody told me, oh, you got to observe what's going on around you or where you are and pay attention to it. I'd be like, no, I don't want to observe anything because I'm pissed. Wasn't too happy with my life, wasn't too happy with my parents, certainly wasn't too happy with the neighborhood I was growing up in. I was full of a lot of hate and rage because of what I had to go through on the streets of where I grew up. Then there came a time where I started coming out of that. I got into college at the age of 23. I started saying, wow, maybe what happened to me wasn't so bad. Maybe I could write about it someday. So how do we pay attention? How do we observe people? And then, class, once again, take notes. Take notes about what's going on. Where are one of my journals? Class, I got hundreds of these things. This is a little small one that I take with me when I go hiking in the desert, And no matter where I am, class, I'm hitting it. Taking notes, I'm observing, and then interviewing. How do we ask? How do, once again, after observing, how do we interview someone? Class, it's a skill you can use your entire life that'll really help you. When you're young, people are always asking questions of you. Where were you last night? Why'd you get an F on your report card? Okay. Why are you doing so bad in school? Why are you such a screw up? Why are you in trouble again? People ask questions of you. You get to be 18 and become adult. You can ask questions of others. You get a job. You pay attention to your boss. The world opens up. How do you ask questions of people? Even if you're shy, class, you can do this. You see your boss driving up in a brand new Aston Martin, brand new Lamborghini when you get a job, and you say, you know what, boss man, boss woman, if you don't mind me asking, what does it feel like to drive that new Aston Martin? I saw you pulling up in it today. And then once again, you're putting the focus on them. The boss will be, driving the new Aston Martin, driving the new Lamborghini. I'm going to tell you. So you pay attention to the outside world so you could ask questions, interviews. How do you ask questions of other people? And then to get them to talk. It's fascinating. Sometimes you get people talking and talking and talking. You're right. Because we all, class, here's the thing about life. We all have enough time to think about ourselves. I do too. I spent a lot of my life thinking, Larry Welsh, Mr. Welsh, Mr. Welsh. What am I going to do next? What's my next hustle? What's my next book? What do I got to send out today? Who am I going to mail my work to? Do I got a new book that's going out? Have I been rejected again? Who's getting this new manuscript? I'm going to send a pitch to New York. I'm going to send a pitch to some university press. So I had plenty of time to think about myself. But I also, because I'm trained as a journalist, got to make time to think about others. How are you doing today? I notice you're sad. Could you tell me why you're sad? Where did you get that car? Sometimes, like with my wife, I have to tell her. Is that from the bottom of my heart, we've been together a long time. I'll tell my wife, that's a beautiful necklace you have on. Did I buy you that? Or that is some beautiful perfume you put on. Or you know what? Sometimes I tell her, we've been together a long time, 20-some years. You know what? I just want to tell you this. I tell my wife, you look beautiful today. If you don't mind me saying it, I tell her, you look beautiful. I just want to let you know, after all these years, that I'm paying attention to you. I pay attention to my students. I pay attention to El Paso. I pay attention to the desert. I pay attention to life. Class doesn't mean I'm special. I'm not. But if I'm going to teach you these things, I got to walk the walk. I'm a professor, but anything that I'm teaching you here, I've done or made a living at. If I didn't do these things, you'd say, oh, Mr. Welsh is a professor, but he didn't walk the walk and he didn't talk the talk. Let's see, has he written profiles before? Yes. For decades. All right. Even though I'm not working now as a full-time journalist. So, observing, how do we pay attention? How do we interview people and ask them questions? When you are young and you go for a job, say at Whataburger, they'll ask questions of you. Why do you want to work at Whataburger? And you'll come up with something like, well, I know that Whataburger is a Texas tradition. I know that Whataburger store started in Corpus Christi back in the 1940s. And I want to let you know, Manager Man, that I've always loved Whataburger French fries. And now I'd like to see if I could man that French fry machine at Whataburger. And the manager's like, wow, sold, you have the job. But then, how do you ask questions of other people to get them to talk? It's a great skill. A great skill. A couple years ago, class, I talked about interviewing. One of the best interviewers I ever met came to town. He's an Irish-American writer in New York City. He's become a friend of mine. He's had like 5 New York Times bestsellers. And he likes me, and he likes my work. I have no illusions. I don't have any 5 New York Times bestsellers, but I have published 12 books, and we've become friends. So he comes into town. And one night we're hanging out. I'm so happy to be with him. He's interviewed the top gangsters in New York. Irish gangsters, black gangsters, Italian gangsters, the top officials in New York. I mean, this guy is on his game. And next thing I know, I'm talking and 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 talking to him. And then I realized, damn, he did it to me. He was interviewing me and throwing out questions. Finally, I'm like, And he did it so smoothly. Finally, I turned to him and I laughed and I said, dude, you got me to talk. I didn't want to talk, but you got me to talk. And he was asking me questions about, what it was like to grow up in South Central Los Angeles, where I'm from. What was it like to be the only white boy in the neighborhood? What was it like to be on the streets fighting? What was it like to be in the gang wars? What was it like to hear on the street, there's a white boy, we're going to kill him, from the Crips and the Bloods? Are you with me? So I was talking about this stuff, and then I was like, damn, he did it to me. He was so smooth and he's so good. I was wondering, why am I talking? Just as much as I've done it to other people. I get people talking. I get them rapping. And because of interviewing techniques. How do you interview? And I'm going to help you with this in the next couple of classes. How do you interview people to get them talking? And then finally, class, note taking. Hold on. Class, note taking. So, when people talk, how do we take notes? When they're talking, you're going to do this for me. You're going to sit down with someone, you're going to interview them, and while they're talking, class, you're going to be taking notes. You're going to ask them questions. I'll help you with that, and you're going to be taking notes. You'll be right. And so when you take notes, this is just one of my journals, class. It's like, let me put this down. This thing is full, and right now I'm going through it now. Hitting it. Notes. Like hundreds, thousands of pages of notes, class. People taking notes, and these are notes sometimes, class, once again, when people are talking, new ideas for books I have, poems I have, once again, journal entries I have. People tell me stuff. I run to this thing. I hit it. I got hundreds, thousands of pages. Doesn't mean I'm special, class, because I'm not. Mr. Welsh is nothing special, but Mr. Welsh is a writer. And what do writers do? Writers write. Okay? So, when someone's talking, you write down their answers, right? Note taking. So, one of the fascinating things is this. I remember when I started at the community college class, and I would go to a class, and my professors would start lecturing, and I'd have my notebook out, and I was taking down everything that they were saying. I'm like, taking it down, hitting it, class, like this, in kind of a more old school like thing, trying to lectures. And then when I was done with my classes, I would leave the lecture room after a professor had lectured, like I'm lecturing today, and I'd look at my notes and say, how do I analyze and condense these notes once again so I can get the essence of what my professor was lecturing about, right? All right. And then I'd underline things, I'd highlight things. Sometimes at the community college, when I teach, face to face, I'll meet students that never take a note. Now, if a student never takes a note in class, and that you don't have to be working with a $400 fountain pen, class. But if a student never takes a note in class, what I've noticed, they never pass my classes. Because you got to be on your game. You got to be taking. So how do we effectively take notes and get the essence of what, I just noticed this kind of matches my shirt. It's kind of cool, perhaps. How do we take notes and capture the essence of what the professor is trying to give us? All right. And then analyze and synthesize those notes, and we'll be talking about that in the days ahead. So once again, class, you can write an essay, but it's got to come down to, once again, the notes. Because sometimes people say, I can remember that. You can't remember anything unless you get it down, class, unless you hit it. hit it, hit it. Once again, that's what we're going to be working on. Once again, page after page after page. Am I expecting you to be me? No. Okay. What I'm expecting you to do, though, is learn some of the techniques that I can help you with, class. Techniques that'll help you the rest of your life, not only when you go to the university, if you go to the university, no matter what job you have, class, you can't lose when you are, once again, taking notes. Give you a little bit of a yellow fountain pen from Germany, from Nuremberg, class. Taking notes. You don't have to do it with the fancy pens. You don't have to do it with the fancy journals. But you have to do it. And then, class, as the years go on, just since I'm opening that door to you, if you want to know about quality writing instruments, these are all fountain pens, and quality journals, I can help you with that. This journal is Rhodia from Paris, France, the best paper in the world. This is a Penlux, once again, fountain pen. Don't need to take time with that. But class, you're young, and you could think, wow, you know what? I want to get into some quality writing instruments to change your life, class. Once again, don't have to. I have friends, writers who are big-time writers, been given their whole life to writing poets. They say, you're crazy, Welsh. I don't want to see nothing about your fancy pens and your ink and all that. It's all right. It's my thing. I don't have anything fancy in life, but I like my pens and my ink. So, note taking. How do we take notes? So once again, class, in this assignment, what you're going to do for me, observing. That's what we did. Observing what's going on around you, interviewing, talking to someone for like an hour. And then class, once again, note taking. So the challenge of the profile is to present a person, place, or activity vividly to readers. Vividly to readers. Which brings up, class, a surgeon's war on breast cancer in our handout here. So, and one of the things I ask my students who are in class is, and we'll go to this piece on page 222 in the handout. In this handout I gave you, it tells us that on 222, remember this type of writing you're going to do for me. I don't want you to be Molly O'Neill for the New York Times. I want you to be you. But you're going to do what she did. Molly O'Neill is a staff writer for the New York Times where her profiles, feature stories, and food columns appear regularly. The following profile is of Dr. Susan M. Love. A prominent surgeon, biomedical researcher, and activist. O'Neill effectively uses the techniques of observing, which I just lectured on, observing, and interviewing, asking questions while Dr. Susan Love was once again answering. Molly O'Neill's taking notes, hitting it, trying to get the answers down, all right? 2, observation interviewing to build a dominant impression of Dr. Love. So then we see this profile, of Dr. Love. We go on to the next page. We see there Dr. Love with her wife and their little adopted kid. We see that Dr. Love is intense. The profile goes on. And then over here, and then it goes on. This kind of a long profile, longer than you'll write for me. Your profiles will be 700,000 words. And class, on your memoirs, students did a good job of keeping that word count. The end of it. All right. So, Dr. Susan M. Love, creating a dominant impression, class, of what's going on. So that is our first example of a profile. So class, the Scope of a profile could be large or small. So in this, a surgeon's warrant, breast cancer, it's a combination. It's small because the reporter goes in local and gives us many details about Dr. Susan M. Love's life. It talks about her glasses and what she's wearing on her chest in regards to her surgeon's smock. It talks about the way she walks, the way she, and then gives us background about her life, how she was going to be a nun, how she was Catholic, she's Irish Catholic, and then one day she decides what? A lot of things. So a lot of details about her life, and then the scope of it's also large because it's dealing with breast cancer. And it tells us, class, I think 1 in 9 women are going to get breast cancer. So a lot of times I'll ask people, and when we're face-to-face in class, what'd you like about this piece? And then sometimes some students say, hey, Mr. Welsh, it was interesting. Or some people say, I didn't like it as much as I like Gary Soto's black hair. Or I didn't like it as much as Annie Dillard's throwing snowballs, but that's all right. It's another type of writing, it's a profile. Some students will say, I've had young women and men say, wow, Molly O'Neill uses a lot of detail in her essay. A lot of power of observation. I like the way Mr. Welsh that she used dialogue. All these things that you're going to use for me. Are we there yet? No. Am I here to help you? Yes. Are we taking it one step at a time? Yes, class. So once again, what was the purpose of, once again, writing this piece of writing? What was the purpose of this class? The purpose of this was to inform. Published in the New York Times, Dr. Susan M. Love is still alive. She's still down at UCLA to inform people about breast cancer, to let people know that there's hope, right? Got to keep hope alive, class, no matter where we are. I just read yesterday that the El Paso Independent School District, there's some COVID cases breaking out. My son's going to El Paso High right now. There's a case broken out there. He's on the basketball team. He's a junior. I'm kind of tripping. Last night I took he and his buddies to the Fountains of Pharaoh so they could scam around. Not scam around, but I drove them there so they could hang, at the fountains outside. So, my thing is none of us want to get the coronavirus. So we got to keep hope alive. The hope is, class, I think there will be a vaccine. I think there'll be a vaccine. I think there's hope. We're going through a tough time, class. Tough time. You'll be all right. Stay with it. Stay in school. Stay strong. Let's try and get through it, class. So, Molly O'Neill, the New York Times, a surgeon's war on breast cancer, to let us know there's hope. To let us know, class, to show us, once again, that breast cancer is serious. To let us know what women can do in case they get it. Doesn't have to be a death sentence like it was a long time ago. Both of my dad's sisters died of it, but this was a long time ago. God rest their souls. They were good women, but they died pretty young. They were both in their early 60s and breast cancer got them. Nowadays, I bet we've come so far since then that maybe they could have been saved. But they're gone, My father's gone too. He's been dead a lot of years. God rest his soul. I don't want to do this, but I can do this. I do that. I think of those people that are gone. Sometimes it's just part of my path. I do a little, I believe in that. Say a little prayer. Once again, say a little prayer. Don't have to. Not a Catholic school, not a Christian school, but it's all right to talk about these things. Because look, now I'm in my daughter's room, who's now at UT Austin, And I'm going to reach for this. God love her. That's where I'm filming this. She's not with us. She's in Austin, Texas right now. Went to El Paso, Ohio, local girl. But look what I just pulled off her shelf. Class. En español este santo. Santo. One of the santos is San Patricio. Class. It's one of my dudes. That's St. Patrick, San Patricio. My name's Lawrence Patrick Welsh. My son is Patrick Welsh. Some heavy stuff. Let me put that away right now. St. Patrick, help me get through this lecture with these students. Students doing some good work. El Paso's funny that way. A lot of saints here. People go to the Saint San Patricio. San Patricio. San Lorenzo. Virgin Mother, help me. All right? Now, and help those women once again. Molly O'Neill writing that essay, the women suffering with breast cancer. Anybody suffering, right? Some people do that. Don't have to do that. I just happen to look up in her cabinet right now. Hope she's all right today in Austin. Down there doing online schooling. She went to UTEP for a year. Loved UTEP. Said, Daddy, you know, I'm thinking. And went to community college. My daughter did, like many of you. She did some dual credit classes, so she could go to UT Austin as a junior. She's there now. Not killing her daddy on all the money I gotta put out, but I'm like, cool, Megan. You know, you're at Texas. We can't mess with that. The University of Texas at Austin, trying to wrap up her speech pathology degree from El Paso, Ohio. God love her. Class. Now, so here's what I want you to do. Let me wrap up this lecture here today. But you got a pen and paper, take out these instructions for your homework. And then I'll get back to another lecture later on. But here's your homework for right now. Are you ready? Write it down. This is what I want you to do over the next couple of days. In addition to what's on the course policies and calendar. Do this for me, class. You ready? Get out your piece of paper. Get out your pen. Say, Mr. Welsh is going to give us something to write down right now. So write it down because you've been taking notes anyway. Mr. Welsh is going to give us something to write down. This is your homework assignment that I want you to do for me over the next couple of days. You ready? I'll tell you. List several unusual people or places on campus or in your community that you could profile. List several unusual people or places on campus or in your community that you could profile. List several. Make a list for me. You think about who can I profile? Who can I interview? Who would I like to write an essay about? Gotta be someone alive. Can't be a family member. Could be a friend. Could be a boss. List several unusual people or places on campus or in your community that you could profile, period. Which of these would be most interesting to you? Question mark. Which of these would be most interesting to you? Question mark. Class. Which of these would be most interesting to you? Question mark. Why? Question mark. And finally, class, what seems special about him, her, or it? What seems special about him, her, or it? So once again, your homework from the top, make this list for me. Have some fun. Start thinking about who could I profile, who could I profile. Because the next time I lecture, I'm going to give you about 100 different examples. Okay, give you an example right now. Maybe you can interview a Border Patrol agent, or a cop, or a priest, or a minister, or an ex-teacher. Sit down, talk to them for an hour, interview them, take notes. Could even do it over Zoom. Then you're gonna write me a profile. We're not there yet, but I'm just telling you. Your homework. List several unusual people or places on campus or in your community that you could profile. Which of these would most be interesting to you? What seems special about him, her, or it? What seems special about him, her, or it? So if you do that for me, class, and you stay up with the readings, you should be in really good shape. Okay? So the next time I lecture, we'll be talking about Betsy Buffo's interview with an artist, and then I'll tell you, I keep talking about the profile, give you hints, give you techniques for the time when you go to do it. So, with that said, class, that's enough for today. Good luck. Remember that I'm still working diligently on your memoirs. I've read some good memoirs, class. Read some good memoirs. Some, even if you maybe your memoir wasn't quite up to snuff, we'll talk about that. I'll help you. A- to F, so those are going to be coming back 2 weeks to the day. Class, do that homework for me. I hope you're well. I hope you're safe. I hope your family is safe and well. I hope you're feeling good. You're doing great work here, class. Have a great afternoon and evening. I'll leave you as the Irish always leave people. All the times I've been in Ireland, when you go to leave somewhere, they tell you good luck, 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 good luck. Irish will say. So I give that to you today, class, and I also tell you adios. Okay? Until the next time, class, stay safe and well. Adios, muchachos and muchachas, and have a great afternoon and a good evening. Take care now. Bye.